Good morning, everybody. It's Marty, the JavaScript party. No ret because it is Tuesday morning, the 2nd of December. And on Tuesdays, my son's dogs Pebbles and Roxy get dropped off. And it is pandemonium in here when that first happens. And I've changed things up to where I'm not using my earphones anymore for these because it seems like it works perfectly fine off of the microphone of the laptop. So we'll see how that works out over time. So sometimes things happen where you're just kind of like, oh, something that used to happen to me all the time in the past makes more sense now. And over the years, I've interviewed several times with a tool organization. It was like they wanted to create I guess, I don't know what the actual technology was. I would assume it was like some kind of node technology to put software on tools. So like drills and stuff like that. Drills, saws, things like that. And then the tools would have like these would be able to, give the person who uses the tools information about how like how much the tools were used, blah 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 blah, all kinds of stuff. But I guess in addition, it was probably also supposed to collect information for the organization to sell. But I don't know that. I was never told that. But anyways, they would always give this crazy. So they probably called me for an interview maybe 6 times. I probably accepted the interview the first 2 times, and after that, the interview was just so bizarre that I just was like, nah, I don't even want to try for this job. It's crazy. But basically, it was like the interview was something about a jungle and monkeys and tigers and things like that, and they were talking about classes and stuff like that. And I don't, sort of some dots kind of got connected for me because I've always been a script language person. So my first language was in BASIC, which was definitely not a compiled language. We would not write our basic code and then run it through a compiler and then execute the compiler. It would run right on the machine where I wrote it. So it was in a sense very much a scripting language, not a compiled language. Now I believe there's other versions of BASIC and other scenarios of BASIC where you would compile it into machine code, but that was not the case for this. And then probably the next big language I worked in was Perl. And I didn't do that professionally, but I did that a lot. And then I spent a lot of time in things that would be like Visual Basic or Access or something where you just drag things around and write little scriptlets inside of little specific places. But I never really did a lot of like C, C#, Java sort of programming. I mean, I've tweaked Java code and I have written some C# code and all that, but after that I was mostly focused on JavaScript and then TypeScript. And so that's kind of one thing where like this guy was talking about like monkeys becoming something else or having extra things or whatever. And it made no sense what he was talking about, at least not from a practical perspective. And then I remember years before that when I was at Boeing, my first job, the developers, we were talking about interview questions and someone was just like, well, what's an object? And then to them it was like a blueprint. That's how they described an object. These were Java developers and Ada developers. They're like, oh, an object's basically a blueprint, and then and that describes what the object has in it, which never ever ever made sense to me. But I could see it. You know what I mean? It was like kind of one of those things where it's just like the sun comes up. I don't know. I can't come up with a good analogy, but it never made a lot of sense to me because it was just kind of like. But I could see where they're coming from. And now I'm starting to really understand because of this delete issue. So sometimes I'm going to have an ST renderer. I believe a renderer is the top. It describes the very, very top of the hierarchy of all the different pieces. And then everything else is a collection of pieces underneath it. Well, if I want 2 renderers to be the same, that's a challenge, right? So I'm going to look, I wanted 2 scenes, but a renderer, let's see, let's go to renderer. a render has a width and a height, and let's say I want to look at the same renderer, and I want them to be identical. I just want a different camera and scene in it. That's kind of one sort of concept in JavaScript or in coding. But on the other hand, I might actually want a camera, and I want the actual same camera. I don't want something that's like it. I want the actual one. So I want two renderers using the exact same camera. That's different. It's very, very similar. But one is like, I want a house, and in the house, I want to have 3 bedrooms that look like this and do that. So I'm going to have 2 identical houses. And then the other is, I want a child that lives in the house, and I want it to be the same child in both houses. Like maybe, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesday lives in one house, and the child lives in one house, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the child lives in another house. It's the same child, right? Like, so those two concepts. So the same child situation is very, very common and to be expected in JavaScript, but that I don't think is feasible in Java. So I think in Java, you compile it and you create it and all that. Now, I know they do have a concept of static or whatever, so then multiple things are looking at the same thing. But the general gist of things is that when you have an object, you generally have copies. You're like the same house that's identical in a bunch of different places, but they are actually different houses. But in JavaScript, it's typically the same child. Everyone's looking at the exact same child. And so that's what I'm trying to work through here. And I never really ran into that little subtle difference until I started trying to delete things. So now what I want to do is I want to figure out where the ST camera ID gets created, and then where that ST camera is deleted, and then I want to delete or recycle the ID. And so the idea is that we have, it is possible that I could have 2 different parent objects referring to this same camera. So I don't want to delete the ID if something else is already referring to it, but we don't have that situation right now. So I can't really build it, but it is going to come up, and it's going to bite me in the butt. It's going to be really hard to fix when the time comes. So, and I don't really know a good way to do it. So this is just like I'm treading on brand new trail. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to search on this ST camera ID. Okay, so this is the definition. This is the interface, I think. Yeah. So if it's in interfaces, it's not something I need to worry about, because that just describes it. That is the blueprint. Okay, so when I delete this renderer, this is still in interfaces, so I don't care, but I have to think to myself, when I delete this renderer, it is possible that another renderer has this ID. And I guess that's why the prune makes sense, because prune, I guess, will check. I guess that makes sense, that the prune would have the intelligence to go check everywhere to determine if the camera should be deleted or not. Okay, so the animation service. Okay, so we will never delete from the animation service. So we don't need that, theoretically. So here, all we do is say get camera by ID. And then this one also gets the camera by ID. So getting it is not something we're concerned with at the moment. Okay, so this is in app services, entities, camera service. So this seems like it's probably the likely place. And sure enough, here. So let's just add a console log. I thought that was very helpful last time. We are inventing new things right now. This is not something I've ever done before. I mean, I did this last time, but this is not something that I'm comfortable with. So I think this would generated a new camera ID. ST camera ID. All right. does this do? Okay, this sets the position of the camera. This just uses it. Okay, so last time inside of the service, the service that we were using for the renderer, we also had something that deleted in that. Okay, so this does not have a delete, and the thing that deleted it wasn't actually ever being called, or didn't need to be called. So I guess that makes some sense. It does make me a little nervous. Okay, so here we have st renderer service, and this, when it goes to create one, it gets the camera and all that. Get camera by ID. This is where it sets it in the renderer. st render, if st render, get the camera ID, and then get camera by ID to the actual. And see, that doesn't have st, so this is actually getting the getting the 3 camera by st. Kind of wish I had the number 3 in there. I think I could put that in there. I'm pretty sure. This is a similar thing, and this is another get. Okay, so I think this is where we generate. Okay, so renderer service never deletes the camera specifically, which makes sense to me. And then this is just a TypeScript, a unit test. And then get, so now this is the camera service. So it almost feels like, so this is for ThreeJS. So do we never, I don't think we ever actually delete the camera. The camera is never, this st camera, even though we delete the renderer, we never actually delete the camera. So, and I guess that does make sense, that the idea would be that inside of here, we would have a delete camera. Delete and recycle camera. And then and then that would be like, we would need to, in the future, add functionality to say, hey, if this is already, don't delete it if it actually gets used. So I think that's what we want to do. I think the next step is to say, delete camera by ID. Now, there's 2 pieces of this, right? And then Boolean. Because we also have a ThreeJS camera. And now ThreeJS cameras, I think you can only have one. I don't think you can reuse ThreeJS cameras. And I don't know that we built that in. We haven't built that piece in, so we'll also have to delete the ThreeJS camera. And the ThreeJS camera, and see, that's, okay, so then that's an interesting thing, because when you create a ThreeJS camera, so the ST side is supposed to be like, hey, this is our description of how it's supposed to work. And then the 3 side is, hey, this is how we do that. But I guess the question is when I delete the renderer, does it delete the ThreeJS camera? And it probably does, but the problem is that we're creating a dictionary, and we'll have a reference to that ThreeJS camera, and so JavaScript will not delete it. But I don't think this data structure works for us, because in the future we're going to have multiple cameras for the same camera ID. And it's going to be that. In the future, we will probably need multiple cameras were the same ST camera ID. So that means this is going to need not only the camera. Well, okay, so it is only one camera. So we'll probably actually have to change this to get camera by. Oh, I knew there was 3 things that I wanted to have plugged in. There we go. My power wasn't plugged in. So in the future, I'm probably going to need I'm going to need multiple cameras per ST camera ID, right? Because the ST camera ID is just a description of it. Not these are on the 3 side, they're the actual instances of it. The ST camera ID is just a description of it. So the camera dictionary is actually going to have to be different. It's probably going to have to somehow be based on the it's going to have to be based on the renderer, I think, but I'm not 100% sure. So anyways, this is never going to work when I want to have 2 cameras looking at the same thing. And I guess that's just going to be a feature on its own, a standalone feature, which should be very interesting and fun to work on. But that is not our problem for today. It's good at this point that I noticed that I have that problem, so it'll be easier to deal with. But and over here we're going to need a delete camera by ST camera ID, and basically all we're doing is deleting the reference so that when JavaScript so hopefully on the ThreeJS side, when I do a delete of the renderer, the ThreeJS renderer, they do something similar to this and they delete their instances, but they wouldn't be able to delete it as long as I had a reference to it. I mean, they would delete their reference to it, but they can't delete the actual instance. So ST camera ID, which is in fact a number. And for now, I'm just going to return false. All right. So when we delete the visualization, okay, so here we probably need this. So what it's going to have to do is check to see, it's probably going to have to go over to the perspective camera service, or not the camera service, but the renderer service, and say, is anyone using this camera? And then hopefully we'll get a false back. No one's using this, and then it deletes its reference to it. But as long as, if somebody is using this, well, no, this is the ThreeJS one. Yeah, so this one this won't matter. We want to delete this camera. Okay. Yeah, so this won't work in the future. I guess that's the thing that we're same ST camera ID. So basically, yeah, we won't be able to just do this. We'll have to delete the correct camera because we may have more than one. Which then again, you got to keep in mind, all we're doing is deleting our reference to that camera. So that means that we could make a bug in here and it not be readily apparent why we have this bug, because we deleted our reference to it, but it still exists, and so the UI is still generating whatever it's supposed to generate because it has a reference to it. So anyways, so we're back here, delete camera by ID. So the first thing we're going to do is delete the ThreeJS camera. 2, delete this camera. Reference. And 3, recycle the ID. So those are 3 things we want to do when we delete a camera by ID. Now, and I misspelled delete. I think that as far as in my personal life, as far as life goes, there's just nothing more embarrassing than misspelling in committed code. It's the worst, especially in the commit message. All right. So now we have our delete camera by ID. We're never calling it though at this point. And I believe we're going to have to call it in the render, st_renderer service. When we go to delete the renderer is when we need to we need to attempt to delete the so here we need to attempt to do that. And I guess we should delete the camera. I don't know. I don't think it really technically matters, but for my own sanity, it matters. Okay, so at this point, the renderer we will need to delete. Okay, so to delete the ST camera. So it's this guy's job to delete the ST camera that is associated with it, to call that function. And then it's that function's job to call the function to delete the ThreeJS version. This one is a little easier than like other parts because there's other parts that also have chains. So we're building like this chain of deletion. And I'm literally making all this stuff up as I go. It's 8:46, so I still have a few more minutes. Okay, so let's just try to call this. Now does this must have a reference. Yeah, this is the 3. ST camera service. Okay, so this is the one that we'll try to delete it. And hit Control Z so I can get back my cursor back down there. Okay, so how do I know what ID? There we go. There's a good question. And that is because in this I should have a dictionary, right? Okay, so render. So we want to get the renderer. We want to get an instance of the renderer. Or I used to call it instance of the renderer, which is technically a correct word to use, but I also want to say a reference to the renderer just for my st renderer. It's probably get renderer by ID, and then we want st renderer ID. I think that's probably right. And then we want to, I don't know why this isn't upset, because I'm pretty sure it's supposed to take ID. Okay, so I screwed that up. ST camera ID. which is a number. Okay, so now that other one should break. Dot. Apparently it is required to have one of those. So in theory now I should get a console log that says something along the lines of delete camera by ID. So this is a really good time to just sort of make sure that everything's wired up. So everything should be wired up when I delete a render, that it attempts, that it calls this function. This function, we need to add this comment in here. In the future, there will probably be multiple cameras. In the future, this camera will likely be used in multiple renders. Okay, so that'll mean that this isn't going to be enough to know in that time which camera to delete, because, or maybe, yeah, no, this one, I changed my mind. This will be enough, but it will need to also search somewhere else to determine if this camera is being used, and only if it's being used should it be deleted. Now the problem is, where things will get really weird, is I can have the same ST renderer blueprint, but I'll have multiple ThreeJS cameras, and I need to delete that one, the correct ThreeJS camera. So yeah, this is going to get really weird in the future, and I can't quite 100% visualize exactly what I need to do. So I'm going to add this, which will likely result in a ThreeJS instance, no reference. Needing to be deleted, but this reference not needing to be deleted. All right, so basically what I'm saying is, I'm just trying to get this straight in my head, more than anything else. Boom, boom. Right. So I have two of these things. In the future, we will have the ability to go to update and make both of these the exact same camera, the ST camera. So it'll be the camera that has all the exact same stuff. So when I'm looking at two different objects, I have basically the exact same camera looking at the same object, at the two different objects. When I do a delete, I'm going to want to delete I don't think I can have the actual ThreeJS camera object. I don't think the ThreeJS object camera can do that. And even if it can, I probably don't want to use that. I probably actually just wanted to create two ThreeJS cameras for me. But when I delete one of these, I want to delete the reference to that ThreeJS, to the ThreeJS camera that's being used for this one, but leave the ST camera alone, because that's what describes this camera, and leave this camera alone. That is what we're trying to do. So I should have two console logs. So two cameras, one of them is ID 2 and one of them is ID 11. So when I hit delete, I'm thinking I'm going to get a camera 2. Okay, so I didn't actually put the ID in there. So let's go ahead and do that. Is this ST camera service? Oh, that's an interface, so let's go ahead and close that. I think it's this guy. It was just added, actually. comma, st, camera ID, reload, boom, add F12, delete. All right, so now we're saying, hey, delete this camera by ID. All right, so now at this point we want to, because, you know, yes, in the future we will need to do that. Right now we can't. But basically we want to do this. And this always, always, always always felt wrong to me, but now it feels right to me. Like for decades of software development, this always felt wrong to me. Like delete. Why is this so different? It is so different because I'm only deleting the reference. I'm not deleting the actual object. It's up to the garbage collector to delete the actual the actual thing. Okay, the actual instance. Okay, so now I think we can do that. I thought, we have the, yeah, so we have the camera service. Okay, so let's just do this. This dot camera service dot delete camera by no. I think I botched the name of that. Delete camera. Oh no, delete camera by st camera ID. That one I did right. Looks like. Let's go to that thing, go to definition, and delete the 3 camera ref st camera ID. All right, so let's just make sure that works. Now I'm gonna have to call it a day. Yeah, so delete 3 camera ref 2, delete camera by ID 2, and then last but not least, we're gonna recycle the ID. And then we need to flesh this out. This is done actually. And then, but in the future, this is the one where I'm going to have to check. I can't just delete my reference to it. I have to check to see is anybody else using this reference. And I believe the renderer is going to be able to determine that. And that is something I could not mentally conceive of and understand like a month ago when we ran into this issue the last time. So anyways, deleting is no fun. Deleting is the least fun of all of the CRUD, I think. And apparently it's the easiest one to screw up, probably because it's the least fun. Maybe that's what makes it the least fun. But anyways, happy coding, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Stay warm if you're in the US. Bye.